So it's kind of, even though the idea that we can take in energy, it's a little bit radical, and some people within certain spiritual traditions or have heard of the idea, but for most people it's very radical, the idea that we can take in positive energy. And yet, much less energy that can actually heal. And yet, we also kind of intuitively know this and live this way. We naturally move towards places, people where we feel good. Nature, sanctuaries, temples, people that we feel good around. We have this natural impulse in us to be in places and do things that feel good. And sometimes we don't know why. We might go to a church and there's just something that we can't put our finger on. No, take care of your body. That's great. And if you need to lie, hold on one moment. So it's kind of this natural instinct we have to move towards that which feels good, even if we don't know why. Like we go to maybe a forest and yes, it's beautiful, that's obvious, but a certain feeling comes over us when we spend time in nature that can be hard to put our finger on. Yet it's very palpable and very real. So what I want to put forth is that thing that we can't quite put our finger on is positive, life-enriching, healing, natural energy. And this idea has been around since before even written history, that there's something we can't see and yet is fundamental to our well-being. Different cultures called it different things. In China, it's qi. In Japan, it's ki. India, it's prana. Even in Western culture, I believe it was called elan vital, the vital force. So the idea that there's kind of this invisible thing that feels good, while on the first hand, and that can sort of lift us up, like good company, again, like a holy place or like nature. Most of us have experienced this. Most of us actually know this. The question is, how much can this, what can this energy actually do? Sure, we go to a church or we go in nature and we feel more peaceful, so we know this energy can bring peace. And relaxation, we often feel relaxed after time in nature, but can this energy do more? I had heard the idea that this thing called energy, I knew it existed because I would go to certain places like temples, or I'd meditate, especially in groups of people, and I would feel something I couldn't put my finger on. That felt really good. But it wasn't until a couple of years ago that the idea was really presented to me very squarely that this energy can literally heal, can literally rearrange matter. And that's where many people might say, whoa, that's going too far. Sure, positive energy can make us feel good, good vibes. That's a very common idea. But what if this thing that we can't see, yet we intuitively know and we intuitively are drawn towards, what if it can do so much more than give us a peaceful feeling. So I was introduced to this idea by going to see a documentary film about what were called miraculous healings. And so what do I mean by healing? Or maybe more accurately, spiritual healing. And what I mean when I talk about this is that an illness or a burden literally just vanishes. Literally leaves. It can leave in an instant, or it can leave over time. We can contrast this with medicine, where, if you have excess acid in your stomach, you might be given something that would counteract the acid. That wouldn't necessarily treat the cause and wouldn't really fix anything, but would kind of manage the condition. That's called allopathic medicine. And then there's something more called natural medicine, naturopathic or holistic medicine, where they would investigate, well, what's causing, there's some imbalance in the body that's causing excess acidity in the stomach, and try and determine that, like, oh, there's a problem in the spleen, so take this herb which will balance the spleen, which will get rid of the excess acidity. And then so that's more holistic or naturopathic healing. And then what I'm talking about is spiritual healing, where nothing more than faith, taking in this energy, or even just openness, really. Openness, faith, trust, taking in this energy and being mindful of our thoughts can literally lead to something disappearing. The symptom, the cause of the symptom, literally just vanishing. The body restoring itself, being restored to harmony, to balance, without us doing anything other than being open to healing, taking in this energy, and learning some new ways of thinking. So this was very radical to me, and my health was so bad that I was desperate and willing to try anything. My health was literally falling apart. And so I was taught this simple practice. And after doing it a couple times, I began to feel something. I began to feel sometimes a tingling, sometimes a flow, sometimes a warmth. And I heard over and over and over, both from the documentary film and people who I could meet and look in the eye, that through taking in this energy and asking a higher power, some people think of that as God, some people nature, some people life, some people a particular religious figure, regardless, but asking a higher power for help and doing this practice of taking in energy, that illnesses had vanished. So let's drop into a silence for a little bit. And just take one more step deeper into what we all intuitively sense, that anything is possible. If the existence, the fact that the universe exists is a miracle, that we exist is a miracle beyond any comprehension. If this planet can exist, much less this universe, which is vaster than we can fathom, is it possible that anything is possible, including spontaneous lifting of illnesses and burdens? So asking ourselves that question really deeply, is it possible? Anything is possible. Spend a few minutes in silence observing our body with the intention to take in positive energy, welcoming the peaceful quiet. Observing the body, engaging our will to absorb the good, and to release and separate ourselves from that which isn't good. Noticing sensations. Keep coming back to observing the body. Thoughts happen, that's okay. Just let them go. Come back to the present moment. So continuing to observe the body even as I talk. So the person who shared this knowledge, his name was Bruno Gröning, and he seemed to understand some things about life. And he explained things in very simple manner. In terms of physical healing, he literally said that all illness comes from a force, a negative force. He used the word evil, though he doesn't mean it in the maybe sense of the word that most people mean by evil, but literally that which creates suffering, misery, illness, disharmony, that which is destructive. And so, in this process of taking in that which is disharmonious, and so he said, in this process of healing, he said it very simply, the good has to replace the bad. Sometimes that can happen very effortlessly. Sometimes there can be discomfort. he had a word for this. He called it Regulungen, which is German, which means regulations. Sometimes when we take in this positive energy, things can just vanish. I've experienced it myself, and sometimes it can be a process where things temporarily seem to get worse. I heard the story of a woman who went to a gathering just like this, and she had pain in her leg so bad she could barely walk. And during the talk, the pain got so bad, it like tripled. And she would have gotten up and left, but the pain was so bad she couldn't even stand up. And then by the end of the talk, not only was the pain gone, but the leg was healed. So that's an example of what Bruno called Regulungen, or regulations, a temporary worsening. For anyone who's done any kind of detox or cleanse, the first couple days you may not feel so good as toxins are being removed from the body and being brought up. So that can be a natural part of this process of taking in positive energy. So I heard all these stories. Some of them from this movie, some of them were actual medical reports where the cases had been monitored by doctors and commented on by doctors. And then I met people here in my town of Santa Cruz who had experienced actual healings. So that opened my mind a little bit. Just a little bit, just enough to try. And so soon after, maybe 2 months after having found this teaching, I got a sore throat and got sick. So a little background, one of the health problems that brought me to this practice was that I was fighting off sore throats constantly. Meaning at least once a week I would start to get a sore throat. And if I didn't catch it in time with herbs and supplements and gargling, then I would get sick. And then when I got sick, I got really sick. And it would last at least 8 or 9 days. Usually 10 days, sometimes even longer. And I got sick 5, 6 times a year. It was not a fun way to live. So soon after finding this practice, I got sick. But I did something different this time. I just laid in bed and did this practice for hours. I was like, I couldn't really do anything else. And I heard these people talking about all these different healings. I was just open. I was like, maybe this could help with this. There was a book about these teachings. And some people had said that these books contain some of this positive energy. I didn't know what I thought of that, but I was willing to try anything. So I put the book on my throat. I let the book just lay there on top of me as I did this practice we're doing right now, observing the body, intending to take in this positive energy. And within 5 days, the cold was gone, which in and of itself was a miracle. Like I said, it was normally 8 or 9 days, usually 10 days or longer. So the cold was gone in 5 days. And then after that, the sore throats never came back. I went from getting a sore throat once a week to getting a sore throat every 2 years, like your average person. And getting sick, now I get sick maybe I catch a cold maybe every 1.5 years. Whereas before I was sick all the time. So that got my attention, that the cold ended so quickly, that the sore throats were gone. And all I did was take in this energy, be open to the possibility that maybe this could help. and put a book on my throat that other people had said, well, the books or pictures, they have this positive energy. So there was something in my body that was causing me to get sore throats all the time. It was causing me to get sick 5 to 6 times a year. And after 5 days, and I didn't do it nonstop, but I did it a lot laying in bed. And after 5 days, whatever that was, it was gone. So in a sense, matter was rearranged by energy. What I'm calling the good or life energy displaced something negative, something disharmonious. It's not harmonious to get sick 5 or 6 times a year, and it's certainly not harmonious to fight off sore throats every week. And I had a very careful diet to boot to try and not get the sore throats in the first place. So most people, I believe, think in terms of material cause and effect. That there's a world, and the world obeys certain laws. Biology, chemistry, physics. But what I experienced in my own body showed me that there's a law underneath all those laws. That those laws are actually, of physics, biology, and chemistry, aren't actually the absolute laws. Because a law, in scientific terms, can't be broken, and those laws were broken. By the quote laws of physics, chemistry, biology, meditation, while it can positively impact biology, can't fundamentally change. I have a little background noise, one moment. And yet that's exactly what happened. Bruno Groening put it very simply. He said spirit rules over matter. And he didn't quite say it this way, but basically what he taught is that when spirit doesn't rule over, that's natural, spirit ruling over matter. And when spirit doesn't rule over matter, that's when things get chaotic. And this whole process of not just regaining physical health, but actually having a peaceful mind, a loving heart, having harmony and order in our lives, and having a sense of purpose in our life. This whole process is, in a sense, bringing our lives into alignment with this energy. In a sense, living lives that are lives of inspiration, which has the word spirit in it. Living lives that are attuned to a higher order or a higher power. In another sense, living lives that are natural. What if harmony is natural? It's a little hard for us as humans to believe that because we look at history for the last couple thousand years and harmony hasn't been what we've been up to. But what if harmony itself is natural and it's just we as we as a race now have really strayed from what's natural. So let's spend a few minutes in silence, just asking ourselves, does it make sense to me? How does it feel to me? Does that in our guts, in the part of us that knows things, not so much the mind, does it seem possible that energy or spirit, or whatever you want to call it, chi, the life force, can literally impact and rearrange matter. And more importantly, can that happen for each of us here? Can positive life energy literally restore harmony in our bodies, in our minds, in our hearts, in our lives? So I can share my experience, and then it's up to each of us to convince ourselves, if we think this is true, to really take it to heart. So let's spend a few minutes in silence, observing the body, and seeing if that feels possible, if that feels true to us, some of what I'm shared. Observing the body, intending to take in positive energy. Keep coming back to observing the body. Bringing our attention back to the body with that very precious intention to take in what's good. So people, the newspapers even, there were newspaper reports about Bruno Gröning when he was alive, the person who shared these ideas. People called him the miracle doctors. There were headlines that would say things like, his word bans illnesses, because he would literally just talk to people and illnesses would vanish. However, what he said was Don't, don't, he basically said, don't believe what I'm saying just because I say it. Find out, don't be gullible, he said. Convince yourself of the truth. Because we don't just want one more belief system. There's plenty of belief systems out there floating around. What we want to have is conviction based on our experience. Once that healing happened for me, I became pretty convinced that what he taught was true, because I experienced it in my own body, and illness vanished. And the way for us to find this out is to, listen to other people who've had an experience of this, and then try out for ourselves and see. So one of the fundamentals of this path is taking in the good. And another fundamental is faith, trust, openness to the idea that there is a higher power and that it can help and that it can heal. For some people, the logic of it just hits them. Bruno Groening said, accept the unconditional fact that God is the supreme physician. Some people, when they hear that, the logic just hits them. This is God we're talking about. This is something that created a universe vaster than vast. Of course God can heal an illness. For some people, that it just doesn't quite land. For some people, they hear that once and it just clicks. They can feel the truth of it. They can sense the truth of it. So another fundamental is our thoughts. Bruno Groening said he loved working with animals that had illness because their negative thought, they didn't have negative thoughts and it wouldn't interfere with the healing process. Whereas with humans, we're constantly thinking about the illness, the burden, constantly thinking, oh, I feel good now, but will it last? Or, oh, it's not healed yet. Or, oh, this isn't going to work. Or, well, that worked for him, but it's not going to work for me. All sorts of thoughts that, first of all, none of them feel good. If nothing else, we can all agree that such thoughts feel yucky. Bruno Groening said that those thoughts actually block this energy. Actually, he said that those thoughts literally cut the soul off from the divine. So we have to be very mindful of our thoughts. This became very apparent to me when there was one particular thing that I was working on healing, and I just noticed one day that I thought about this illness literally 200 or 300 times. And that was just the times I was aware of. Who knows how many times. So, there have been a lot of teachings in the last 20, 30, 40 years about the power of thought. But one thing we all can agree on is that such thoughts, negative thoughts, and thinking about negative things, it doesn't feel good. That we can all agree on. And then something for us to experiment with is how our thoughts can actually impact our life experience. And in this case, Bruno Gröning said it's a key component of the healing is to not think about the burden, to give it away to God or a helper, such as Bruno or another spiritual helper you trust, and not think about it. And I work at this every day. Come the day when I'm able to just give something away and not think about it. And it does happen sometimes. Recently, a life situation presented itself where there was some uncertainty about something that was very important to me. And I caught myself just thinking and dwelling and what's going to happen and what if I do this and what if this happens, and I just noticed that, it feels awful. So I just gave it over. In my case, I feel it just depends on the moment. In that moment, I felt more comfortable giving it over to a spiritual helper, in my case, Bruno Gröning, and just trusting the situation to him. And the relief of trust, and the relief of not thinking about it, and then being mindful every time a thought came to just hand it over. It was life-changing. Not like, change my whole life, but day-changing. These thoughts were literally wrecking my day. And we all kind of know this, right? That if we dwell on a negative situation, it will wreck our day. And then if we dwell on it for a week, then it will start to impact our life. If we dwell on it for a month, then it really becomes a mood, doesn't it? Something that's just kind of there all the time. And then if we dwell on it for a lot longer than that, it just becomes our life. Our life becomes negative. Very simple principle. And yet we need to practice it every day, this mindfulness. So let's spend a little time in silence, giving away any life situations that we're concerned about, handing them over to the divine, to a spiritual helper. Some people feel more of a connection to this energy, handing it over to the energy, to something higher, and then trusting that it will take care of it. So let's spend a little time in silence and being very mindful of our thoughts, letting them go, and if they're negative, giving them away, not taking them in. Observing the body, letting thoughts go, giving away negative thoughts. take in what's good, to let go of that which doesn't serve. Being vigilant with our thoughts. Stepping into trust. Deepening trust that there is a higher power that helps. So many negative thoughts are driven by the idea that we're all alone and there's no hope, and that there is that nothing's going to work out. Most negative thoughts are based in distrust, in fear, in lack of faith. And so when we catch ourselves thinking that way, Bruno Groening said to give the thought away and ask God for a good thought, a true thought. So we intuitively all kind of sense that there is positive energy. We call it good vibes, or we have all these different slang. The mood in the room was, or there was such peace in that place. So we all kind of know that. We know that this mysterious thing can have a positive effect on us. For some people, it's a radical idea, though, to step in the idea that it can literally heal us. Yet when we ponder the vastness of the universe and that something made it, then it doesn't become so if something can make even this earth, much less this galaxy, much less this universe, if something can make that, of course it can heal an illness. And then maybe we begin to open a little bit. We hear some stories of other people who have walked this path and for whom the humanly impossible somehow became possible. Right? It's humanly impossible to sort of make an illness go away, and yet I've heard it. Cavities, cancer, allergies, trauma, depression, anxiety, arthritis, constipation, incontinence, everything, eye trouble. Some of them I've experienced those healings myself. So then we begin to open up to this idea that, well, in a sense, maybe we don't know it all. Because if our worldview is based just on the material world, we just open up to maybe there's something beyond all this, which many spiritual and religious people are. And then we take the step further. Maybe that thing beyond the material world can really have profound impacts. Profound impacts. I got to hear in person the story of a woman who had been ritually abused as a child. That means sexually abused, and while she was abused, she was told the most awful things. In a sense, it was satanic abuse. There is no God. God hates you. She was just traumatized beyond. And she had tried counseling and medication and everything, and she was emotionally really crippled. And she practiced this teaching for some time, and then one day she woke up and the trauma was gone. It was just gone. So for people who already have religious or spiritual beliefs, then we take a step deeper. This, whatever made us, can have profound impact, positive impact in our life if we learn, in a sense, the rules of the game of life. Like, how does this energy operate? How do I connect with it? How do I harmonize myself with it? I've heard everything. I've heard a woman who was, in an insane asylum in a straitjacket, and the medications were killing her. They had such high doses of medication to sedate her, because if they didn't sedate her, she would try and kill herself. And other people did this practice for her. She couldn't tune in, she couldn't meditate, but a group of people would do exactly what we're doing right now, with faith and openness, observing our bodies, taking in this positive energy, and not trying to heal her, but asking that this be directed to her, letting the energy, in a sense, heal her. And she made a full recovery, left the insane asylum, and lived a normal life. Medically impossible. She was on so many medications, she was dying from the medications. So then we have this practice of taking the energy in. We have this openness. We take that openness a step further and really start to contemplate or be open to the possibility of a profound impact. And then we take in this energy and we give away thoughts that don't feel good. Be very mindful of our thoughts. And using those three principles, whether you call it faith, trust, or openness, and I'm just calling that one thing, maybe faith, taking in this energy, minding our thoughts. And then the last one is humility, is asking for help, turning to something, admitting that we need help, whether that be God or a spiritual helper or just this energy itself. Bruno Groening said, if you want to succeed, follow God. That in a sense, illness and problems come from not following, not being in harmony with life. And Bruno Groening said, God is life and God is nature. He also said God is love. He kept it very simple. That when we stray from those things, that's when disharmony occurs, and we align ourselves. And actually this practice we're doing, in German it's called Einstellen, has many meanings. One of the meanings is attune. When we attune ourselves with the good, first of all, it can remove the disharmony, and then once we've cleared out the disharmony and we stay attuned to the good, then less and less disharmony can come into our lives, because we're living in harmony with life, with God, with love. We're living in harmony with the fundamentals of life, that which is even beyond what we call the laws of science. So we'll close here tonight with doing this practice. So there's 4 of us. There's Alan and Nick online, and myself, Truth, and Rhea here in person. So let's ask each one of us for the highest and best good for everyone who attended tonight. And then attune ourselves to this energy. Asking this energy to bless everyone who came here tonight. So asking that, and then observing our bodies, letting that energy just move through us and do what it will. It wills. Asking for the highest blessing for everyone who attended tonight, and also for everyone who will listen to this. I'm recording this, and for everyone who will listen. So, if nothing is impossible, then anything is possible. I like to say, if I exist, if this universe exists, if the miracle of that anything exists at all, then anything is possible. And I've experienced it in my own body. My body was falling apart, and I got my health back. And if I can do it, so can anyone. I'm not a saint by any means. And I've heard hundreds and hundreds of stories of other people who are just people who have really taken this to heart and really experienced profound transformations. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to take my word for it. You can verify in your own experience, which really is the true teacher. Then we can know truth in a direct way. I don't mean truth, my name, but the truth. In a very direct way. We can know it in our own bodies. Thanks so much for joining in and listening in. Aloha.